Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope you guys are having a good day. I hope everything's going well for you. I'm gonna give you guys time to come into the live stream as we get set up. I want to say welcome to everybody. Welcome to drboycetv.com, the home for intelligent Black people. So if you are intelligent and progressive and care about your community, then welcome home. If you're not in this category, then you probably want to leave because these conversations will only frustrate you. Today, I have the honor and the pleasure of speaking with a brother for whom I have tremendous respect. His name is Dr. Michael V. Roberts. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Roberts in case you don't know. I've mentioned him to you guys before. He is, he's known for a lot of things. But one thing, he and his brother Stephen have pretty much built just an extraordinary business empire. They they had some extraordinary parents, Victor and Dolores, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, whenever I see a great apple, I always want to study the tree, and so his parents, Victor and Dolores, they just raised their children to be wealth builders. They raised them to understand the importance of economic empowerment mixed with education, as well as love for your community, which I think is a formula for success for all of your children. I think it's a formula for success for our people. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome my good brother, Dr. Michael B. Roberts. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you very much. It's truly a delight to be here. At the moment, I'm hailing from my home in St. Louis. As you probably already know, and others may not, I have a number of businesses around the country, most notably one that I took on in Detroit back about 9 years ago when everybody was running away from Detroit. We had situations where the mayor was on his way to jail, and the economy had shifted. The industries up there were down, but I looked at that city and I said, no matter what, a city that's 90 or 91% African American, if one has the right business and builds it correctly, one could succeed, even in a downturn economy, because I believe that we as African Americans try to be as loyal and committed to each other to do business with each other. So knock on wood, 9 years later, the business is doing well. I'm very happy with it. It takes me to Detroit, which is a fun city. But interesting enough about Detroit is that they elected a non-African American, Caucasian mayor about now over 4, maybe 6 years ago. And all of a sudden, all of this money starts to flow into downtown Detroit. The complexion of the city in its core business areas have changed. Back when I started, I was a Black man trying to go in. I've owned 12 hotels, but I have a little experience in the background. But what I found interesting was when there was so much business opportunity in Detroit, I felt that if I could go in, write a check, buy a hotel, set an example, other African Americans around the country might follow. Because, if you will, Detroit was, if you will, our city. We had it politically, we had the population, but that unfortunately didn't happen. And many of the businesses that actually had facilities, storefronts, and others in downtown over the years have lost them. There's been just a major change that's taking place in the city. The population is still at least 70, 80% Black, I'm sure. But the downtown core, the economic engine of the city is completely changed to primarily white folks now. And I just think that at some point we have to acknowledge the value of business enterprise and not just having, quote, a good job. I know when I was in Atlanta owning a hotel, I was the only hotel owner there. And I looked around and I remember mentioning this to George Fraser once. I said, George, you look at Atlanta and it's supposed to be the mecca for Black businesses, or Black people in general. And I said, well, what do we own? I said, now at the time I owned 3 city blocks in downtown St. Louis. I said, how many city blocks or even how many buildings are even owned in Atlanta by Black folks? And unfortunately, we could not come up with anyone. at the time. So the question now becomes, for me and for all of us to answer, is at what point do we acknowledge that we should be more entrepreneurial? And at what point do we release ourselves from the golden handcuffs of a job and take on the responsibility of creating commerce, business, and develop ourselves and our people into a position where instead of receiving a paycheck, we're actually signing the paychecks and we have ownership.
Mm. Well, you know what? And I'll tell you this, Dr. Roberts, and everybody who just came in, I'm speaking with Michael V. Roberts, who's known for owning a series of businesses. And he and his brother, last I checked, these guys were billionaires, which I think is really awesome. I'm excited about that. But being a billionaire, while it's exciting, it's more exciting when you are a Black billionaire. And I use that term in a very deliberate fashion. I love the fact that you love your community and you understand how to target that power. And I'll say this, Dr. Roberts, you know, one of the things that we always talk about in the Black Business School is that our community needs to be on a mission. The mission is to solve the problems in our community by creating an army of entrepreneurs. We need entrepreneurial minded people everywhere. We need Black boys to be as committed to building empires as they are to dribbling basketballs and throwing footballs. We need to be investors. We need to dig deeper and be the job creators as opposed to the job seekers. And so I'm on board with that completely. So let me ask you this. What happened in your household, you know, when your mother and your father, Victor and Dolores, raised you and your siblings? They had to do something different, right? Mm-hmm. There's no way you could tell me that you had just a typical upbringing and they just, you know, you just went through the okie doke. What was it that happened in your household that led to you and your siblings having a different mentality as it pertained to wealth building?
That's an interesting question, and one that we've pondered several times. My dad, who was 96, and my mom was 91, who I, of course, go to see every time I'm home and as much as possible. Still very sharp. In fact, they still drive cars. So what I believe in looking back is this. You know, if your parents raise you to have a degree of confidence, the level of confidence that gives you the opportunity to realize that there's really no reason for you to say, I can't do something, even if you don't have the experience. Now, my daddy worked at the post office for 39 years. My mom, interestingly enough, the week I graduated from law school, within a week, my brother graduated from college, went on to law school, and then my mom graduated from college. So she wasn't going to let her kids outdo her by, you know, us finishing school, and she's not. So there's a degree of tenacity there, if you think about it. My father wanted to make sure that the household was comfortable, safe. He would work night shifts and day shifts at the post office, which for Black folks was a good job back in those days. But I also recognize that they would also do little other businesses on the side. They would service wealthy households with a catering type business. It was very low key, didn't want a lot of folks to know about it. But I watched that, and I watched how important it was to have that additional income outside of the jobs. And it also had us in there cooking sometimes. When we were like 10 or 11, my hands were just about the right size to make a good meatball. And I'd be making them, you know, you're participating and helping where you can. Then, of course, we had chores. We had the responsibilities, and we would have an allowance. Now, my responsibility was to cut the grass. So when I was about 12 or so, we got a gas lawnmower, and I cut the grass. And for that, I received about $5 a week. My neighbors, however, thought I did a pretty good job. And they would hire me to cut their grass, and they would pay about $10. Well, then I realized one was a job and the other was a business. Now, I'm not sure exactly how that all translated ultimately, But I will say to you that I did recognize the fact that cutting the same amount of grass and getting double the money resonated very well with me back then. So the folks were there. They were giving us the level of confidence to actually step up and step out and do what's needed. We never knew that we were, I guess the best way to put it was this: we weren't rich, we weren't poor, we just never had any money. And I think a lot of people understand that concept and what that really means. So for parents who can keep the image that everything's cool, you know, a lot of our friends were parents who had parents who were physicians, and many of them were right in our same circles. And you know, religion, more so churches. Like I was raised Episcopal, that created sort of a stable type of structure. And in fact, in my church, we had more educated African Americans in our church than any other Episcopal church in the whole state of Missouri. So that meant that my parents put me in an environment with what would be perceived today as successful people. And then I guess one as a child begins to emulate and learn from others. Now, I knew my folks weren't lawyers, they weren't doctors, weren't, you know, professional business people. I recognized that. But perhaps in part, it was instilled in me that I can go out here and do it. Now, if you ask listen, a week after I graduated from law school, I moved 2 blocks from the projects. I lived there for 10 years, and I was elected to the city council, our board of aldermen. So for 8 years, I was in the hood representing the people, and also looking at how am I going to build some kind of a business relationship. So what I was doing then is taking over individual small homes that were abandoned and beginning to renovate and rent them out. And there was a plethora of those homes available, much like they are today in Detroit, where you could get up for little or nothing and then go out and try to renovate them and rent them and do the rest. So it was baby steps, but it was an experience for me to be able to represent our people in the hood, in the community, in the projects, not originally coming from there, but going in there, and then successfully getting elected and successfully helping families in a variety of areas. So, brother, let me put it this way. Don't let the light skin fool you. I got plenty of street cred as a result of my time in the hood.
Well, I tell you, my daddy's a light skin, and he got a lot of street cred, so I know what you mean. The complexion of your skin does not matter. It's the complexion of your soul. And
precisely.
And everybody, I want you guys to know who I'm speaking with in case you just came in. I'm speaking with Dr. Michael V. Roberts. He is the CEO of several holding companies. He's most known for achieving extraordinary economic feats with his brother Stephen and his family, but also I know him from the FraserNet conference, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. Also, if you're watching anywhere, if you're watching on Facebook, do us a favor, please share this interview to your Facebook page. That'll help with the deboosting algorithm to stop that. And then also, if you want to see Dr. Roberts and see what I'm looking at on screen, just go to drboycetv.com. That's drboycetv.com. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up button. Also, a reminder, next weekend, August 23rd, that weekend, we'll be in Atlanta doing a series of speeches and an investment seminar on Sunday, all day long. If you want to learn more, go to drboyceatlanta.com. That's drboyceatlanta.com. So let me ask you this, Dr. Roberts. I was taking notes as you were talking because I know the importance of listening to my older brothers. I'm not going to say elders because that sounds old. You're not an old man. But my older brothers, the individuals that paved the way for people like me, yourself, Dr. Claude Anderson, and Kenny Gamble, Dr. George Fraser, others, I pay attention, and because I think that there's a wisdom there. And I want to ask you this question. I'd be curious to know your answer. I have several thoughts that came to mind, but one thing is this. I noticed that you were born in 1948, if you don't mind me mentioning that. And that was before we had this social phenomenon called integration.
Yes.
Now, I was born after integration. I saw a different kind of world than what you saw. On one hand, my parents had similar common sense values like yourself. Like my mother, your mother, I believe your mom became a teacher, and she was also a homemaker. My mother was a guidance counselor, so which is a lot like a teacher. And my dad was a police officer, so he also had that steady job. But there was a value system in the household, a type of personal responsibility that we believe is made the difference. We were born in the projects, but my sister's a physician. My brother went to Cornell. I have a PhD. We all did. We had different outcomes from a lot of our friends, and a lot of it I attribute to the fact that my parents had a value system that would be defined as conservative. And it almost seems like maybe the Republican Party has kind of hijacked things like personal responsibility. But I believe in that very deeply. I believe in those ideas, and it sounds like that's what your parents believed in too. Can you speak to whether or not you believe that, the integration itself, just this idea that, that somebody else's ice is colder, that it's better to get out of the hood and move across town. It's better to go work for somebody else than it is to go build your own. Can you speak to how this has shifted our community and the odds of success amongst our young people?
Well, let me begin by saying that, it was once quoted that the person who does not enjoy the fruits of their labor is a slave, a modern day slave, if you will. Earlier, I mentioned the term golden handcuffs. I was slowly and softly suggesting that perhaps having a job is a form of modern day slavery. You just don't enjoy the fruits of the labor. The family members of the companies that you're working for enjoy the fruits of your labor, but your family does not. And too frequently, what I find is even my friends who are very successful with jobs continue to live paycheck to paycheck. I've written a book, Action Has No Season, Strategies and Secrets to Gaining Wealth and Authority. It's been out a number of years. Within the next 30 to 45 days, my second book is coming out, and it's going to be Action Has No Season 2.0. And in it, I discuss a variety of things, including one's mindset. And how is it that your mindset positions you to be limited when in fact it's a state of mind? And how do you change that? How do you make that shift? Well, I coined the word the actionaire. The actionaire is one who takes their ideas, their dreams, their vision, their passion, and they pursue them with courage and confidence and bravado. I'm trying to get more people to accept the concept of being an actionaire. The core word is action. And too frequently, what we find is we have great ideas, we have dreams, we have all of these thoughts and plans, but we never take action behind it. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who are watching us right now who said or have observed the fact that they had a great idea, and a year or two later, somebody else took that idea and made billions of dollars with it. Did we cut off? There you are.
I wanted to put the image of your book up on the screen, but go ahead, brother.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, fine. So if we look at if we take on the perspective that action is natural to the human, your body is always in action, your heart is always beating, your brain is always thinking. Everything about you is action-based. The question becomes, why is it when you get outside of that, you begin to back off of it and slow down and ignore the reality that you have some brilliant ideas that could become extremely successful. Now, when my brother and I built our companies, I mean, I've built a wireless phone company. I was probably the only black that's ever built and owned a wireless company, took it public, and ultimately was rolled up and sold. It was sold to Sprint. I did the same thing with a variety of the 8 or 10, or about 12 TV stations that I owned. At one point, some of them were sold for purposes of financing some of our other businesses. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a billionaire. I would just say that I built a company that had, according to CNN, that kind of value. So I love to clarify, and be precise with who I am and what I am. But who I am is someone who's taken the time to write the first book and the second book. Why? Because I believe that the strategies and secrets that I've learned to gaining wealth and authority is something that has to be shared. And the best way to share it long term is to write about it. Some people are asking, well, what's the difference between being rich and being wealthy, for example? And I tell people all the time, well, this is my favorite phrase: rich people scream, but wealthy people whisper. You see, you can have all the bling bling, and you see people with the bling bling all over their body, their head, their toes, and they don't have $20 in their pocket. Wealth is a sustainable statement. It is to be transferable, and it is to allow for generations behind you to have a chance to grow even greater than what you've created. And then I make a distinction between having power and having authority. I hear people always talk about, well, he's very powerful, or this is, power is important. And it may be, but here's my analogy. There was a time when I remember when President Bush Jr. And Condoleezza Rice went to India and Pakistan. And they tried to get them to stop warring on the border. Now, the President of the United States arguably is the most powerful person on the face of the earth. Powerful person. But when they got to those two countries, the heads of those countries basically thumbed their nose at them and said, these are our countries. You need to go back to the States. Now, at the same time, you had Microsoft, Motorola, Lucent, Dell, and a variety of companies beginning to build companies in those countries. Now, what if Michael Dell had gone to the heads of those companies and said, listen, if you start a dispute or a war that affects my pipeline of business in your country, I will pull my businesses and affect the growth of your middle class. Bush had power, Michael Dell had authority. So what I'm trying to express here is, in a free enterprise system, and that's what we're in, too frequently we as Black folks don't want to admit that or use that term, being a capitalist. If you lived in a socialist nation, you'd be called a socialist. If you lived in a communist nation, you'd call yourself a communist. Well, we live in a capitalist nation. So we better start recognizing that and embracing capitalism, because that's what gives authority and creates sustainable wealth.
All right. Everybody, in case you just came in, I'm speaking with Dr. Michael V. Roberts. He's the author of the book, Action Has No Season, Strategies and Secrets to Gaining Wealth and Authority. Authority is an important word, as he just explained to you guys. It means something. It's different from power. And also, I love that comment, the rich people scream, wealthy people whisper. And so we got a lot of whisperers in here. If you're a whisperer, type it in the chat. Let us know that you want to be a whisperer. I want y'all to whisper in the chat what your goals are. Tell this man about your dreams and who you're going to become, because this is what it means to pave the way. And just to name some of the companies that Mr. Roberts owns or has run over time with his brother Stephen, as well as other members of his family, Roberts Broadcasting Company, Roberts Tower Company, Roberts Wireless Company, Roberts Brothers Properties, etc. So he's done a lot of work, and not just talk, but actual action. And I like that term actioneer actionaire because action is everything, right? If you have the best ideas and the best opportunities, but if you don't act, nothing happens. Nothing happens. And I love the fact you make that distinction. So let me ask you this, Dr. Roberts. You've done a lot of work in real estate. I found it fascinating when I was reading about your transition. You and your brother Stephen, if I'm not mistaken, you both went to law school in your 20s. I think you went to St. Louis University. He went to WashU, which is a great school. I actually interviewed at WashU. I remember interviewing at WashU for my PhD. I remember how much I liked the school. And once you got done, if I'm not mistaken, you both jumped into real estate as a pathway to building wealth. I'd like to know more about that in terms of what real estate ownership, what property ownership means for our community, the financial and non-financial aspects of it. Because I don't know if you know, if you're aware of this or not, but in 1919, we owned as a community 15 times more real estate, more land than we own today. We own 15 million acres in around 1919. We own about 1 million acres today. I personally think, and I'll shut up after I say this, and I'd love to get your take. I believe that we need to go on a mission as a community to own everything that we can. Just ownership has to be part of our gospel as a community. What are your thoughts on that, and what real estate has kind of done for you?
Well, it's a great question, and it is the bedrock of success, I think, for my brother and I. Whether it's the hotels that we own, or the downtown city blocks that we owned, or the buildings that we built. It was also the pièce de résistance, the passage of least resistance for us to get into business out of school. Because when we didn't have any real money, it became easy to acquire a building in the neighborhoods in which we had moved because they were vacated. And not that we had a lot of money even to renovate them, by the way. The point is we had hands-on approaches. I learned how to hang drywall. I learned how to sand and tape and mud, the drywall. I watched the plumbers and the electricians, and that was sort of a microcosm reflecting the macrocosm that has grown to us being able to build, in one case, a high-rise building in downtown St. Louis, or even the renovations of various properties. We've taken on, for example, warehouses or office buildings and converted them into loft apartments. Those things create revenue, but you also want to be very clever in how you approach any city that you go in, because there are benefits and opportunities. For example, you may want to get a tax abatement going in. You may want to look at the other kind of incentives that cities are offering you as you look at every element of your business plan. How are you going to stack your financing, and where do some of those benefits fit within that opportunity? Because we were both former city councilmen, aldermen, the first thing we would always do is when we hit a city is we'd go get our political visa in order. We'd go meet the mayor, we'll go meet council people, we'll ask questions, to the economic development people. What are the incentives that are available for developers to come into your city and to develop? And so the rules of the game I just described. You don't have to just go in and say, well, I'm alone, I'm going to try to get this done. The political people actually are looking forward to meeting you, because this is part of their mantra, their statements, their position that they want to create, especially minority-owned business people to come into their community. And when you get that blessing, that goes a long way, because as I said, you may end up with a tax exemption, for 10 or 12 years. It may create, you may find that there may be some available loan money, low or no interest money that may be available to you. There may be programs where there's actually percentages of for your taxes. In other words, you may pay 100%, and the program may allow you to receive 50% of that back, which is something I found in Detroit when I was up there. It was only good for maybe 5 years, but those first 5 years are your critical years in most businesses in terms of what it's going to take to develop. So, to your real estate question, and I'm sorry I'm giving you so many details, but I'm trying to give nuggets to our people out here because that's what I do. What always bothered me was the fact that our grandparents and parents worked so hard to leave one asset to the family, and that is their home, paid for in the city. People then go to school, they get educated, they decide they're going to run to the suburbs. And the saddest thing that I see is how they've left their grandmama's house, go for back taxes, and then watch young white folks come right into the neighborhood, take over that very house for little or nothing, renovate it, and then suddenly the entire neighborhood is mostly white. And it's the very home that our grandparents worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and struggled because real estate, and the only really real estate for them at the time was their home that they could afford, was left to our friends, and all they did was turn their backs and move to the suburbs. Now they're kicking themselves, realizing that there was gold in them, their streets that they walked away from.
Wow. I hope you guys are getting that. Please, make a comment and let us know what you think about the conversation so far. I know that they seem to love you, Dr. Roberts. I see a lot of people in here in the chat that are saying thank you, by the way, for sharing this information, because a lot of folks that they get success, it's sort of like all screw black people. I want to go and talk to the people that are worth my time. And so I think that the targeting of your energy to your community is that's about as worthwhile of an endeavor as a human being can have if you're Black in America, in my opinion. And so everybody, just a reminder, please hit the thumbs up button, the share button, subscribe button, everything else. Also, don't forget, we'll be in Atlanta. It's all about Black wealth the whole weekend. We'll do a little speech, meet and greet, and book signing on Friday. I'll be at the We Buy Black convention on Saturday, and then we'll do a day-long investment seminar on Sunday. If you want to know more, go to drboyceatlanta.com. Also, don't forget the All Black National Convention is happening in September. So the weekend of September 27th. Learn more about that at allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. And Dr. Roberts doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to go ahead and try to get on his calendar for 2020 to see if he can come out and be one of the speakers at the convention. I hope that's okay if I throw it out there. There you go. Just throw it out.
I got it. I caught it. I caught it.
All right.
Let me point out something interesting. I'm going to receive an award in Atlanta on the 21st, I believe it is, at the Ritz-Carlton at Bulkhead with the Minority Business Quarterly magazine. And my good friend and the person that I helped hire to take over New Birth Church, Missionary Baptist Church in Atlanta, Bishop Eddie Long, the late Bishop Eddie Long Church, Dr. Jamal Bryant. He and I both will be receiving an award on that day. But let me mention something. It's something that has come up that may tie in with your program, and hopefully I can convince you to be a part of it as well. I have been approached to do a 26-city tour, and it's going to be called A Conversation with a Capitalist.
Wow.
And people will have the opportunity to listen to a couple of us speak, and I'll have the total afternoon, where we have a similar kind of conversation. And we do this throughout the country because no matter what, politics or business is still grassroots when it's all said and done. So if we're going to change the mindset of our folks out here, we have to touch them. And one of the things that I'm creating in my office, and by the way, you mentioned staying in the community. My office is on Dr. Martin Luther King and Kings Highway in St. Louis. Now, any street in any city that's named Dr. Martin Luther King you can envision what the street looks like, and it must be in the hood. Right? I've never left it. Yeah, my brother and I bought an old Sears and Roebuck building back in '82. We've turned it into an enclosed mall. We renamed it to the Victor Roberts Building, named after our daddy, who came and joined us after he retired from the post office. And my position was all Mr. Sears did was leave all of our neighborhoods. So let's start to rename and reposition ourselves where we need to be. Having said that, I think that, if we can get commercial businesses rolling in terms of real estate, not just the homes, because I seem to suggest that. There's some strip shopping centers and storefronts that are abandoned in the neighborhoods. We should look at maybe going in and seeing what it would take to acquire those. And then, because there are those people who have salons that have small businesses, but they don't have anywhere to locate. I think one would be very surprised at how many small businesses may become your tenant in your real estate projects there. It's something to look at very seriously.
Yeah, I love that idea a lot. Yeah, I think there's so much opportunity. I just, when I look at our community and you look at our neighborhoods, some people see devastation. I see opportunity. The right kind of vision. There's so many wonderful things that can be done. And I want to ask you about something. I think it's important for us to cover this as well. I think that with the success that you and your brother have had, and the great work that you've done, I think it's very easy for, say, a young brother, young sister to look at you or myself or anybody, and it almost seems like it's so far away. Well, their lives are perfect. They've done it all. They don't make mistakes. And we know that that's not true, right? And so I'd be curious to know if you could talk about some of your tougher moments, if you will, maybe times where maybe you failed, you tried to do something that didn't work out, maybe times where you were sad, times where you ran into pitfalls, and how you were able to keep the mindset to continue to move forward in those situations. Can you speak to that?
It's a fabulous question, but let me preface it this way. I would ask the question to everyone watching and listening, what would your life be like if you could eliminate the fear of failure? So if we take those two words and we break them down, first word being fear. Fear is just a mental construct. It's not of nature. It's not grass growing. It's not the wind blowing. When you were born perfect. You had no fear. Fear is something that you allow to enter into your psyche. So why can't we just take it away as we've allowed it to come in? Second word, failure. I don't believe in that word at all. You may ask why. Every day when you wake up, you're given 86,400 seconds. That's 24 hours for those math majors out there. And the moment you think of the moment, it's already gone. Very existential concept. Now, if that's the case, then if you have a marriage that didn't work out, if you had a business that didn't work out, was that a failure, or did you learn something from it? If you take the position that you learned something from it, then you would define it this way. It is an experience where the outcome wasn't as I would have liked, but it was an experience. So the first thing we have to do is take away the guilt of not being able to succeed in something that you're doing. Because if you do that, you'll continue to look in the rearview mirror the rest of your life. Now, you wouldn't drive your car by looking in the rearview mirror, would you? So why would you live your life that way? And in those 86,400 seconds, if you're busy thinking about something you have no control over, then what are you doing? You're wasting your existence. That's where the actionaire comes in, because you see the actionaire has eliminated the fear of failure. Now, one of the other things I'll ask an audience, and I'm gonna still get to your question. is, how many of you think outside the box? I'll ask everyone to raise your hand if you think outside the box. Of course, we can't see you because we're virtual right now. However, if you raise your hand, I want to spank you. Why? Because if you're living outside the box, doesn't that presume that you are in a box? You see, the words mean things, and your psychological positioning in your head, can eliminate and limit you from proceeding in doing or taking action. So we have to be a no box thinker. We have to eliminate the fear of failure in order to be an actionaire. Now, yes, I've had a number of businesses, especially during the downturn in the economy, the '08 downturns, '09, where I found that Bank of America, jumped all over every business out here, including ours. And my brother and I probably owed $115, $120 million. Now that's a lot of money that people would say, well, dang, if they loaned you that much, how much are you worth? Well, you could do the math. It's usually 10%. So the point is, those assets, when they were going out of business, Bank of America, or as some people put it, Bank on America back in those days, they were calling loans. They were saying you're supposed to, they want you to refinance. Well, if the bank isn't refinancing you, the Bank of America is not, who else is? The answer is the one, because everybody was suffering. What that did then was that forced us to sell many of our assets connected to that loan at deep discounts. And that put us in a very interesting spiral. Now, we had taken 3 companies public, so we had access to some capital, cash. And we were in the throes of selling other businesses like a tower company and some other things. And what we were able to do was save certain assets, but we had to jettison certain assets at the same time. Does that hurt? Well, it depends on how you look at it. Sometimes you have to recognize, well, where did you come from? And look where you are. Can you take the position that I've eaten bologna sandwiches, for lunch. Do I want to go back to it? No. Can I go back to it if I have to? Yes. So as long as you take the position that, you can, if you look at from whence you've come and recognize that you were fine then, and you may be in a way financially better now, but can you continue to exist? So what you also have to do during that time is find ways to protect your assets. You have to look at, how do you move assets from one position to another position to protect it from the reaches of others who may have the ability to attach. And so when you have a variety of resources, and one of the things I encourage people who need to do it is to recognize that bankruptcy is a very, very good thing. Mm. In our community, we treat it as a stigma. But if Trump does it, or if General Motors does it, or if Bank of America does it, oh, how clever are they? You see? Mm-hmm. Well, bankruptcy was originally set up legislatively for poor people to be able to get a fresh start. But it was established for poor people, but it can be utilized by any other definition of a person. And a corporation is definition, but legally is a person. So therefore, bankruptcy becomes a very unique and a very good tool for people to use. Ignore these folks that are saying, oh, about bankruptcy, I feel so sorry for them. No. In business, as capitalists, as entrepreneurs, as actionaires, if somebody does that, I'll say, how clever. Good move, smart move. Use the system to your advantage and to your benefit. Ignore these other people who just aren't smart enough to know the difference and proceed on with your successes. So that's how we handle the downturns. That's how we handle the outcomes that aren't as we would have liked. We take the knowledge from them. We become very strategic. We fight through it, and we come back stronger than ever.
Okay, so did everybody catch that? You know, there's a reason why bankruptcy is called asset protection or bankruptcy protection, right? It's not a stigma in business. And I agree with you. You know, you hear the conversations when I guess when you have the critics of Trump, or it's fine, whatever. Just so you know, Dr. Roberts, in this space, I encourage people to be I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, as long as you're black. You know, that's what I say. I'm not Democrat, I'm not Republican, but you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, he's a bad businessman. He declared bankruptcy," or "Oh, he's a bad businessman. He didn't make money, or he lost money when he did X, Y, Z." And I think that people who talk that way are not typically business people, and they don't understand the strategy behind how businesses operate. And I love that. And I also love what you said about just asset protection in general, which leads me to a somewhat loaded question. I know you got a busy day, so this will be my last one because I know everybody loves you. If you love this brother, just say we love you, thank you. I'm seeing the comments, and everybody's really. I think they love that when you mentioned that thing about living inside the box.
Thinking outside the box. Yeah.
I'm gonna give you credit, but I'm gonna use that one because that's an excellent point.
Well, thank you.
You know, when you talk about asset protection, you know, and you're right. There's so many ways to look at that. One area of asset protection that I've always been intrigued with is asset protection across generations. I don't know if you know aware of the statistic, but 70% of all wealthy families lose all their wealth in one generation. 90% lose all their wealth in two generations.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that is due to problems with estate planning, things like that, or not thinking so much about what's going to happen after you're gone. And one thing I've noticed about you and your brother in your extraordinary business journey is that I see a lot of companies with the name Roberts attached. You know, you got the Victor Roberts building, and you're and I said, okay, these are empire builders, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I mean, that's why my company's Boyce, Watkins Enterprises, because you can't tell me I'm not a king. You can't tell me I'm not an emperor. I decided that when I was broke, right? And I want everybody to, you're a queen, you're a king, be that person. And so I want to ask you this: when you think about your legacy and you think about how you're going to be remembered by the grandkids, great grandkids, in the 2-3 generations down the line, 50, 100 years from now, what do you visualize, in terms of what you're doing right now and how that plays out, over the next 100, 200 years for your family?
Okay. Let me begin by stating it this way. I have 4 children, okay? And all 4 have finished college and law school, okay? So, and now they've given me 8 grandchildren, okay? Now, my brother has 3 children. 2 of them are lawyers by training, and one is actually running, is elected. Steve Roberts Jr. is a state representative in Missouri, running for Senate next year. And a daughter who has a master's degree in, I believe, marketing. So regardless of the hundreds of millions of dollars that I've had to work day and night to make, judge me on my babies, raising my children, and to be able to take them through college and law school. And by the way, they went to public schools, just like me, okay? Now they are blended into my business, or they're on their own. For example, Mike and Jeannie, my 2 older, went to Morehouse and Spelman, and then they went to Pepperdine Law School, okay? They're in St. Louis, they work with me here. Mike's a good Kappa man like me. And my daddy, by the way, who was a charter member of Kappa Alpha Psi back in 1942, still the last living charter member of my frat. Yo to all my brothers out there. The ladies' side of the family, mostly AKAs, by the way. I'll have to give the ladies their props. My daughter-in-law, my daughter, my family, the wife, everybody. So here's where we're looking. As I said, the judgment at first is is, are these kids being raised properly? Do they have a work ethic? And if they do, are they prepared to instill in their children, my grandchildren, the similar things that I've instilled in them, that work ethic issue? And they are. And one of the things that I always suggest to people when they talk about inheritance is you don't give your children your businesses without a little debt on the business. What I think we see, in the media is, these people who work very hard and don't really raise their children correctly, and their children might get strung out on drugs. None of my kids are, facing any of those kinds of issues. I also was sort of careful to see who's marrying who. Like, for example, my daughter, Megan, who is very bright. She's the youngest. She lives in California, and her husband is Jacarius Johnson, who's very famous producer of plays and movies. He's right up there with Tyler Perry, for those who know Jacarius Johnson Productions that are all over the United States. He's done very well. Well, I met him. He seemed like a very nice man, and I made sure that he and my daughter met. I wouldn't call it a setup. Well, maybe I would. But at any rate, they're happily married with 3 little boys, very small kids coming along. So it's things like that that I think is important. You live your example as you, to your question, children and grandchildren, passing the message on to great-grandchildren, et cetera. You create the message, you make it instilled in their minds and in their personas, in their personalities. And then, you kind of hope for the best. I mean, there's no do-it-yourself kit to this. I don't want anybody to think that, that perhaps they did something wrong. They may have done a lot of things right, but there may have been another environment that they weren't aware of that their kids got caught up in. We don't know all the things that our children are doing. All we could do is stay close to them, love them, and try to set a very solid example, and create a level of discipline that can translate into how they'll handle their families, how they'll handle whatever wealth may be passed on to them, so that they become proper stewards of the legacy.
All right, everybody, I want you to know I'm speaking with Dr. Michael V. Roberts. He's the owner of several holding companies, including Roberts Broadcasting Company, Roberts Tower Company, Roberts Wireless. He also is the author of the book, Action Has No Season, Strategies and Secrets to Gaining Wealth and Authority. He also has a new book, Action Has No Season 2.0. I encourage you guys to take a look at the books. I met him at the FraserNet conference, and we were on a panel, and I was super impressed with everything he had to say. And so I hope you guys will go research him for sure. Also, a reminder, please hit the thumbs up button, share button, subscribe button. Don't forget the weekend in Atlanta, August 23rd, drboyceatlanta.com to find out more about that. Second of all, the All Black National Convention, the weekend of September 27th. allblacknationalconvention.com. Last but not least, if you want to build the little Michael Roberts in your family and build your children to be wealth builders, we have all kinds of tools, and we believe you should send your children to business school at the age of 6 or 7. So we have tools for you. You can check out at financialworkbooks.com. That's financialworkbooks.com. So Dr. Roberts, I'd like to ask you one last question. I'm gonna leave this a little open-ended, so in case there was something that we didn't get a chance to cover. Sure. I remember you were talking about, in the panel, I was impressed with your skills as a futurist. When you really just laid out a vision for the future that told me, okay, his brain's a little different from everybody else's. He don't even think outside the box, as you said. There is no box, right? Speaking of the future, though, there's this study you might have seen. Have you seen it? Everybody's talking about it, where they say median black wealth for black families is expected to drop to 0 by the year 2053. Right. Can you speak to the future of black wealth and how we might at least on a individual family basis, for the families that don't want to be a statistic, how should they process that, and what's the future of wealth in the Black community in terms of what you expect to happen and what you think can happen if we do the right things?
Well, first of all, in the future, within the next 10 to 15 years, as a result of artificial intelligence and machine learning, many of the jobs, over 50% of the jobs as we know them today, will be eliminated. It'll be primarily robotics that'll be doing the jobs that people normally do, especially our people. As an example, there will be the development of these nanochips. These nanochips will be able to completely diagnose your health, for example. So what I suggest will probably happen is you'll be able to get these little nanochips that'll be about the size of a grain of coffee. And let's say you put them on your mirror and you look in the mirror, you wake up and you say, mirror, mirror on the wall, what's wrong with me? Those chips will then deal with you. Of course, you'll have some internal chips as well that can do a diagnosis of your condition. What will happen then is those nanochips will then communicate with the robo-doc that services you, the robo-doctor that will then receive that data online or through another form of direct communications. RoboDoc will do an analysis of the medicine that you need. They will then send a message to the robo-pharmacist. Robo-pharmacists will then pull the necessary drugs that they feel will cure you. Robo-pharmacists will then contact the robo-local drone company, who will then pick up your medicine, fly it to your house, and your personal robo valet will receive the drugs, bring them to you with a glass of water, and at that time you will take them and go to sleep. So if you look at all of those jobs in between, that you in the future you will have less use for lawyers, because with cryptocurrency transactions that'll take place, and money is going to be transferred from peer to peer. Blockchain will be the core for that. I'm throwing these words out. I just want people to listen to them and research them, because I could go for the next couple of hours explaining them. But look into cryptocurrency. People know them as Bitcoins and things like that. What is the backbone for that transaction? It's called blockchain. So the blockchain is going to be the use ultimately to develop a database on everything that exists in the world, every parcel of property, the origin of everything. So you'll be able to look into a blockchain and determine if you're buying a sump pump, where does the origin of where was it made, who made it, and be able to get a history on it. Same thing with food, with cars. All of these things will be inside of a blockchain. Now the question becomes, where do we fit in? Well, all of this has to be developed. Robotics. I mean, if your robotic equipment breaks, somebody has to fix it. If it falls in dents, just like a car dent, somebody has to repair it. There's going to be a variety of businesses that will emerge from this. You see, our brains are already getting set up for virtual reality. You've seen these virtual reality units that people can buy and put on, and it'll take you all over the place. Well, in the future, your cell phone, which is this thing, this cell phone right here, has more data capability than what NASA had when it sent a man to the moon. Now imagine that phone and its capability to be able to go into a nanochip that can go into your brain. And then at some point, your brain is now the same as your phone. And if you close your eyes and you want to download what it's like to skydive, you'll be able to see it. Or what it's like to scuba dive, you'll be able to see it. You know, virtual reality is setting us up for that now. And so the question again becomes, well, where do you fit in with this whole futuristic lifestyle? And I'm just scratching the surface, by the way, of what the future is going to be like. But in terms of your point and your question earlier, yes, any repetitive job. Look at what happens at a General Motors plant today. Those big robotic arms that are assembling the cars. Well, that used to be people doing that. Well, any job in the future that's repetitive in nature will be swapped out with robots. Any deep research that you have to go into, say if you're a paralegal, you won't be doing that research. A computer will have that right there for you with the stroke of a pen, or a stroke of a computer tab. So these repetitive jobs that we frequently have as Black folks will be eliminated. So when you describe the ultimate capabilities of our family having wealth, our families having even any kind of money, we have to probably look at in the future some kind of a universal payout that will be allow for every family member in the future to receive, say, $1,000 a month. Otherwise, we'll have total chaos. Yes, that's right. You heard me. It's almost like a welfare program, as we know the term welfare today. But if there's a universal pay where all the savings and all the funds that have been created as a result of this futuristic vision that I'm sharing with you, there's going to be money coming into to very successful people. But if properly taxed and properly utilized to go back into a government system, then at that point, this universal payout to every human in America, and it's say $1,000 a month, that will help us to support our economy and our society in the future. So I hope I'm not blowing too many minds right now, but I think that's the way it's going to go. And I won't even go into some of the other things that I would discuss, if I was giving a speech right now.
Well, let me ask everybody, tell me, was this brother not awesome? Was this not an awesome interview? I hope you guys will take a moment and give this brother a digital round of applause. Dr. Michael V. Roberts, he's an extraordinary man, and I'm going to invite you back. We'd love to have you in here. I know that our students at the Black Business School, they love to learn from people that actually know how to do things, and you've actually done it. You know, you're not just a teacher that read a bunch of books.
Right.
You went through the University of Life and graduated with magna cum laude, which I think is awesome. And also the cultural relevance of your message is wonderful as well. It's not whitewashed information. It reminds us, that you can be financially successful and still be Black. You don't have to trade in your card, people. So make sure you guys get that. So let me give you guys the title of Dr. Roberts' books so that you can support him and support the things that he's working on. One of his books is called Action Has No Season: Strategies and Secrets to Gaining Wealth and Authority. His new book is called Action Has No Season 2.0. And Dr. Roberts, do you have a website where people can go and?
Yeah, well, they can go to the Actionaire on Facebook. They can go to the International Order of Actionaires. They can go to my book on Amazon.com. By the way, there's a Twitter feed that's out there now, Michael V. Roberts. That's on Instagram, I guess it is as well. Interestingly enough, I have to share this story. Somebody took a clip of me speaking, and I was describing how I decided to go into the hotel business I was basically saying, look, we as Black folks, we go to hotels, we work at hotels, we've even been involved in the construction work of hotels. We travel. Why don't we own hotels? And that's when I got into the hotel business. So Killer Mike picked up this piece, put it, and I've never met him, and I'm looking forward to it. I understand he wants to meet me. So he reset it on his Instagram. At last look, it had 148 or 156 likes. I don't think he had quite too many of those, period. But in his other ones, so he's a gentleman that I'm looking forward to meeting. We'll probably spend a little bit of time. I'm working with him. And by the way, one of the other strategies I'm working right now is what are we going to do about the 2020 elections? And I'm working with the folks at World Star Hip Hop because one of the things that I've had discussions with them and Pastor Jamal Bryant is we have to communicate at a different level than we've ever communicated it before. And we're going to have the proper streams to get to young Black folks to vote. And I'm going to utilize that platform. In fact, I'm becoming a partner with that group. And we're going to convince the popular voices, the rappers, the performers, to have some common messages about the importance of voting and registering to vote. And they're going to hit a number of cities where they're doing talent searches. But part of the talent search I discussed with them today is we've got to make sure that, the several hundred, if not thousands of people that will be showing up, and they've had those kind of numbers, that we also have a voter registration methodology within that whole process, and that we start to allow for even the more ratchet type of websites to have a message. I figured if the Russians can do it, we need to figure out how to use our own internet capabilities and message centers to get our message across. So we'll be meeting with some of the candidates and some others to work on the funding of this type of idea I have. We want to get the faith-based community to kind of repeat the message as well out here, and recognize that there is significance in who we elect in 2020.
All right. Well, I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna have you back, and at your convenience. And we learned a lot, and I hope you guys will once again give Dr. Michael B. Roberts a digital round of applause. Also, some support. Share this video with other people that have actionaire ambitions, billionaire ambitions, success ambitions, whatever it is, ownership ambitions, which we should all have. Make sure you share this. And just to remind everybody, don't forget, I'll see you guys in Atlanta the weekend of August 23rd. So if you'd like to meet up there, go to drboyceatlanta.com. Second of all Black National Convention in September. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. I hope you guys will come to that. We're going to cover everything from wealth building to politics to men and women to relationships, all of that, and different panels, things like that. Last but not least, financialworkbooks.com. If you'd like to check out our workbooks for children and get your kids on a wealth building journey, send your kids to business school now, get them ahead of the curve. That's where great people like Michael Roberts comes from. He and his brother Stephen have done something extraordinary. But imagine a community if we had 100,000 men and women that think just like him, that think just like his family. We wouldn't have any problems. We'd be paying reparations to everybody else. They wouldn't have to pay anything to us because we.
That's right. We would be on our own. And let me just point out one other interesting point, if I may. I want to close the gap on a home or real estate, especially in the cities now that are coming back so strongly. My daughter, Fallon, is the fourth of the other three at the time, has arranged for one of my properties in the Bahamas. Yes, that's right. I'm the largest African-American developer in the Bahamas, to move into the Airbnb space, which is where she's doing very well in California. And that's a very easy opportunity for Black folks to to develop revenue on properties that they own. You know, and there's, I think, a home away from home. There's a few other websites, but I think we have to look at some of the low-hanging fruit to get started that can create multiple streams of income. And that's what you know, Fallon does for me. Of course, all my kids are business people, so but I'm just sharing with you what they share with me sometimes. And I think it's just important for us to recognize the value of our children, the value of our youth, and the value of what they have to say about emerging opportunities, because they can see some things that older people don't necessarily see, and understand really the true value of the internet, and even the fact that we're communicating as we are right now, and how that is a strong marketing tool, unlike, you know, buying an ad on TV or on radio or anything else. You know, right here, free of charge, you can make millions of dollars by just utilizing your thoughts, your connections. You can design something in your head. You can. Let me give you a good example. This is a simple one. I was at a conference. I think we were at the same conference on this one, and there was a lady who was selling the heck out of some T-shirts, right? And I looked at the shirt, and the shirt said, "Black don't crack." Now, we've heard that all our lives, right? But what did she do? She went and put a copyright on it. She tagged it, and she owns it. A term that we all use right under our nose. Black don't crack. And the sister is making a ton of money on that phrase because she now owns it as a result of trademarking it and going forward. So that's something I'm saying. You know, don't try to, you know, swing for the home run. You see, you know, what I want people to just recognize is there was a really great home run hitter. You mentioned Atlanta, whose name was Hank Aaron. Okay. Hank is known for his home runs, but the point is, what made him successful was the fact that every day he would step in the batter's box and swing. Now, he got out more times than he hit home runs. He got singles more times than he hit home runs. Yes, the home runs are the big deal. We all talk about it. But the point is, every day you may strike out, you may get thrown out. But the key in our life is that every day we must step in the batter's box and swing. And that's what I want to leave with everyone. If you want to be a real actionaire and join up as actionaires, just be prepared to step in that batter's box every day and swing. You just might hit a few home runs. And thank you very much for allowing me to spend time with you today. I enjoyed our meeting when we were panelists together. You're doing an outstanding job. I'm sure everybody who follows you recognizes the tremendous reputation you have and your commitment to our community. So I'd like to just personally thank you, and on behalf of everybody who is watching, we all want to thank you for allowing us to be able to come together through your network. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Ditto, right back at you. And I'm inspired by this conversation because you know, Dr. King had a dream, and I have my dream, and my dream is when Black men and women are coming together and solving this thing, fixing our community, building what we know we can build together. And it's great to have you as a teammate. You know, I'm incredibly humbled by your success and your presence here and the great work that you do. And I'm also humbled by you guys out here that are connected and supporting what we're doing, because we can't do none of this without you. We all need each other. And so I hope everybody will commit to being an actionaire. Everybody type the word actionaire in the chat. Commit yourself to action. Words are nice, but we need that action to follow up. So thank you once again, Dr. Michael V. Roberts, author of the book, Action Has No Season, Strategies and Secrets to Gaining Wealth and Authority. Feel free to check that out. His follow-up book is Action Has No Season 2.0. You guys have seen how great he is, and I'm going to definitely invite him back. And before you go, please hit the thumbs up button, share, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in Atlanta, drboyceatlanta.com, allblacknationalconvention.com. That's the next month. Also, if you want to continue on your wealth building journey, we have people right now waiting to talk to you at theblackbusinessschool.com. We have 80,000 students now learning concepts like this, and I hope you guys will come over there and talk to us, because we can help you learn everything you need to know. So thank you guys. Thanks again, Dr. Roberts, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon, sir. All right.
Indeed. Goodbye.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.